You are listening to Ace Comicals. I'm Greg, and today I'm joined by my co-host Rahul. Let's go! Hello and Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to Ace Comicals, episode number 79. We're back, and it's 2020, and I still don't have my flying car. We were just discussing this before the cast that we are now firmly in like cyberpunk future territory. This is like the year that they were writing in the stories that we were reading when we were kids, like, oh man, flying cars in 2020.
Yeah, we've passed the disappointment event horizon and we have none of the things we were promised.
It's like becoming an adult all over again.
I know, right?
I think it's just being kept from us. I think it's all there in Area 51.
Elon Musk's keeping it all to himself.
Oh man, he can keep his low poly vans. I'm not interested. I don't want to drive around in a fucking PlayStation car. Like,
don't want to drive around in a Lego wedge. Come on,
a 32-bit vehicle.
Bringing in our 2019 energy, ragging on Elon Musk. Sorry,
it's not even fully 3D, that car, you know. It's just like it's on an isometric plane, so it looks 3D.
That'd be fantastic. It's just a bicycle behind a cardboard platform.
It's like those trees in some Sega Saturn or PlayStation racing games where it's like the tree.
You can only ever see them. Yeah.
It's a cardboard standee, so the tree has got like it's like two of the same shape, like crossed over, like when you make a cardboard standee. Or like the crowd in a wrestling game, where even from the back it looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're past the event horizon of disappointment. It is 2020 and we don't have any of the things we were promised. The singularity hasn't happened, but there's still comics. So, joining us today, we have Marv helping us kick off 2020.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here again.
Rahul returns.
Hey, everyone. Happy New Year.
But Leon isn't feeling very well today, so unfortunately we don't have Leon. So, I mean, this year we're hoping to go in a slightly different direction with Ace Comicals. We're hoping to be a little better and a little different. So this year's casts going forward are going to focus more on technique and mechanic within comics, through discussion of some of our favorite creative teams, runs, or series. We are going to be doing the reviews still. We are going to be doing reviews of new and interesting books that will hopefully be hitting the stands of your LCS. In short, we're dialing back the reviews a little and looking to dive deep into some of what we believe is the best that comics has to offer. So we're kicking this year off by going to the sweet place. This is going to be a long overdue deep dive into the towering sundae that is Ice Cream Man. And helping us with that, as I say, we've got our guest Marv today. So yeah, I think we can say that this is a firm favourite of Ace Comicals, Ice Cream Man, and that we all definitely have a sweet tooth for it, don't we?
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is the Image anthology series that I can safely say has had me hooked since day one, and I think has probably had you guys hooked as well, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So, I think you and I, especially Greg, have pontificated very often about how much we like this book.
Yeah, we pretend to be all like smart and stuff when we talk about Ice Cream Man, don't we?
We pretend not to be the Ice Cream. We used to be the Image cast, and now we slowly became the Ice Cream Man cast, and we've had to wean ourselves off. But this is our opportunity to purge, right? To like let out all the internal screams we've been keeping about Ice Cream Man.
Yeah, this is our opportunity to sit down in our wingbacks and enjoy our vanilla LiCkEtY splits. So, kick this off with the fact that there are 16 issues currently available and 17 is on the horizon. 4 volumes. All of them are available on Comixology or in print. I own all of these in single issues, but because I've been buying them single issues, I've got it on my pull list. I've had it on my pull list since day one. But I've actually recently repurchased these digital, so that I didn't have to get the single issues out because my tablets made me lazy. So
I totally feel that energy. I hate I love having, it's like having your cake and eating it. I love having comics, but I don't like actually reading those paper comics. It's so much easier to just pull my iPad out and do that. So I fully respect your decision to go digital.
But what I didn't realize was the amount of like back matter and things you actually get in the collected volumes. A lot of stuff that was missing well, I wouldn't say missing, a lot of stuff that wasn't in the single issues, like at the back of these collected volumes, like script breakdowns and all sorts of stuff like that, which I found really fun to look at, especially for specific issues.
Let me just ask, because I know you're mentioning that for the collected volumes, but the single issues on Comixology is what I've had, because I've subscribed to it on Comixology, and at the back of each issue it's got some like character sketches and stuff like that. Is that in the single issue physical ones as well? The
character sketches and things. It is occasionally, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you've got me there, actually, because
I haven't bought.
Yeah,
I've been buying the print ones. I haven't actually flipped through them for a while, but I believe the ones in Comixology are basically the same front to back reproductions of the paper issues. I can't speak for the volumes, though. I think they do have different content in them. So, or I think the volumes may collate a different set of the post or like the end of issue stuff.
I don't know if the single issue of, we're going to get onto this later, but there's an issue that begins in Spanish.
Yes.
Does the single issue version of that, because I don't know if it did in print or not, because I remember finding the translated cheat sheet at the back and thinking, oh, cool.
Oh, I don't think I'd seen that. So I
don't think I've seen that either.
And that was in the collected volume. But what I was doing when I was reading it because I read that physical, what I was doing is I was using Google Translate, and I was using the thing where you can hold your camera in front of it on your phone.
Oh, okay.
Oh, smart.
And it like translates it so you can see I'm reading the comic through my phone's camera lens and holding the camera over the speech bubbles, and it translates the speech bubble in real time.
Well, I guess we can all agree that there are just a couple of things that we don't have to be disappointed about in this brave new world then.
I was going to say, we do have some of the things we've been promised. Somewhat disappointing Babelfish. It doesn't always translate things well, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not the universal translator that we see in movies, but it'll do.
It'll do for now. But yeah, so what I wanted to dive into mainly with this is what is it that makes Ice Cream Man special? Like the inner workings of the book, and what sets it apart from other horror titles on the shelves right now and makes it ridiculously and thoroughly fresh. And just as a fantastic anthology series that it is. So basically what the premise is with Ice Cream Man, in case you haven't heard us talk about it before on this cast, or you haven't picked up the book or anything like that, is the fact that we have this, I don't know whether to call him a demon or a god or a cosmic being, this Ice Cream Man, who appears to be in the background of each tale or involved in each tale in some way, and is the purveyor of sweet treats, which I guess he's the purveyor of sweet misery, I guess, if that's the right way to put it.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So he is there in the background, and he seems to be orchestrating this or pulling the strings on all of this, and each story follows a completely different set of characters. You get some callbacks and some returning characters throughout the series, but each story generally follows a completely different set of characters or a completely different person through some kind of existential horror or crisis. And the horror with this particular series, the thing that keeps it unique is the fact that it is so close to home. It's existential horror that we've all experienced in some way, shape or form. Maybe not as extrapolated as it is in the pages of these comics, but some of the thoughts and feelings that are in there, some of the things that these people have dealt with and whatever, it's things you can fully imagine happening. And it's not particularly outlandish. And so, it gets there, but it's not. In a way, it's not particularly outlandish, is it? It's just that's just how it is.
No, it does the wonderful thing where it sort of runs the gamut. So it's like,
yeah,
you could have an issue where it's just a very small personal thing. Like I know we're going to get to it and get to the issues and stuff, but the issue with the rock and roll guy.
Oh
like,
yeah.
That's quite possibly the very smallest personal sort of drama / tragedy that is depicted in the series, but it's as poignant as some of the more outlandish ones where you're sort of spanning bigger things again without jumping too far ahead.
Well, you've got the one with the heroin addicts as well.
Yeah,
which is a similar line, like issue 2. That is with the you've got a story about heroin addiction.
Yeah, I would describe it as an anthology of insidious thoughts, both small and large.
Yes.
Like small in scale and large in scale, both in the personal way and also the ramifications on society at large as well. And all of the issues can bounce around both those types of themes or that scale, between episodes.
Yeah.
It's very cool that way.
But like at its most grand, it's truly original and frightening in the way that it plays with horror on a cosmic scale. Like it explores the true dichotomy of bad and good, and this recurring line that you get, I mean, it's popped up a couple of times. You can't kill an idea.
Yeah, I've got that particular line written down in my notes as well.
Yeah, because it's like the idea. It's like I'm not sure if you can really call it an idea, because I'm thinking along the lines of how people think, like the way my brain works when I fall into a funk or a depression, and the bad music as it is in these comics. The bad music that plays, that is the bad music that is the tune that you kind of dance to when you're in that kind of funk, when you make bad decisions, when you feel awful about yourself and you start to think these awful things about yourself.
Which is really represented by the tinny sound that the ice cream truck makes as it passes.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's you flock to that noise, don't you? Like you would flock to an ice cream truck. And it's less an idea and like more an intrusive thought, I guess. But they're not really ideas. They're concepts. So I would say they're more concepts, and it's like you cannot kill the concept of bad and good, and they are eternal. And these are the universal constants that this comic kind of plays with. And like at its largest, like most extrapolated, which I think is during volume 3, Hopscotch Melange. It goes to a time older and beyond our understanding, and then jumps right into the future and just shows you the full length and breadth of how this thing will be eternal. It will always be eternal. There will always be bad music. And there will always be something to challenge that as well, because it's not completely without hope, because what's horror without hope? But yeah, so all of this also seems to take place in a fictional place, the town of St. Generous, or the majority of it seems to take place in the town of St. Generous.
Yeah.
So I mean, we should kick this off by going through like what your favorite issues were, because we've got 16 issues here, and I think we've got a good selection of favorites each across the length and breadth. So Ray, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think if I had to pick one, I think issue number 8, which is called Emergencies, would be my favorite, because to me it feels like it's a trippy drama, and to me it's the start of to pull a term from TV tropes, it's the start of what I feel is how it starts to grow its beard. Like it becomes more than the things that it presented itself to be in the first 4 to 6 issues, I think. In that it cements an overarching story that was only previously hinted at, and just the like terrifying absurdity of some of the imagery we get in that issue is really cool and trippy, and also the pathos of like the characters that we follow, which are two I don't know what you call them, EMT paramedics, and the process that they're going through, and like the fact that we follow them through on a very small part of their day, and how it how the issue begins and how it ends, and like the forgetfulness of that issue is really interesting. And that's when, I mean, I was already hooked well before this issue came out, but this is when I realized, oh, this is building to something more. Because one of the things I wanted to say earlier was, I think one of the things that makes Ice Cream Man so unique of all of the other horror comics that we talk about and all the other horror comics that are coming out right now is that they build pathos in a really interesting way, where they consistently provide smaller stories that then turn big. And like you mentioned, Greg, we follow a string of protagonists who all are inexorably led to the same doom through infinitely different routes. And I like that this comic didn't reveal its grander plans until this far in, because it was almost masquerading as an anthology up until around this point. So I think that's why issue 8 is my favorite.
But yeah, I mean, I have to agree, because issue 8's on my list and it's the top of my list. Like, Emergencies is definitely my favorite issue, because I love the conversations between the two EMTs as they're doing all kinds of different drugs in the cab of this ambulance, and the way that they justify it, and like what's happening all over town, and how they feel so overwhelmed by the amount of bad that they decide not to do anything and themselves inherently become bad.
Yeah, and you can't tell if they're blind to what's happening in the town, because clearly something's gone wrong, because there's lots of violence erupting throughout the entire town. But either they're blind to it or they're numb to it, and you never quite get a sense of which is which. Whether they're unseeing or uncaring or whatever, whatever part in between those two, those two ends of the spectrum it is.
Well, I think it's like they're choosing to become numb to it, because you get the whole conversation where they're talking about how something that I think maybe we've mentioned before on this cast in relation to other comics, but so if I quote the comic, it's like you scroll and scroll and it's just nasty sentence after another, like the internet, like scrolling through Twitter and all you get is negativity. You wake up in the morning, you boot Twitter up, it's negative. You wake up in the morning, you boot Facebook up, it's negative. It's like there's no escape from it. You turn the news on, something bad's happening. And you become desensitized to it. And then you decide to become numb to it because it's too much and you don't like it. And
then it infects you, and then you perpetuate it.
Yes.
Oh, at least some of the characters in this issue.
By becoming numb to it and choosing to ignore it, you almost become part of the problem. Which is kind of what happens here in this book. But yeah, it's that that closeness to things that we've all felt or thought that runs through this issue, actually, that makes it my favorite. And in the way that it also talks about how there is a conflict, and there's a conflict in everyone, and you can choose to obey one voice or the other, and there's always two voices. There's the voice that tells you to drink the blood of your enemy, or there's the other voice that says we are all one. And this is like the difference between the Ice Cream Man and his opposite, as it were, his rival or his mirror image, who, I mean, it doesn't get revealed any more until the next volume. But this is the first volume where we get to see him, because he turns up at the beginning. This is volume 3, by the way. He turns up at the beginning in the first story, which is Ballad of a Falling Man, which is another one on my list of favorites. And he also turns up at the end in Emergencies. And I think what I like, actually, I mean, this is like a departure from my usual, like, the usual way that I interact and enjoy horror stories, because what I like about this isn't necessarily being able to understand what the Ice Cream Man is, or what his opposite is, or what's going on. I understand that these are two eternal forces playing a game of chess with humanity. And that's as much as I need to understand. And then what I like, actually, is the humanness of it, and in the way that it is like that people are, the inherent bad in people is displayed within the pages of these books in quite an interesting and inventive way. And the stories that are told through that and through, you know, these situations that are somewhat avoidable as well. Like, they're not situations that are unavoidable all the time, are they?
No.
I mean, Marv, what's on your list of favourites? If you give us one from your list.
Well, yeah, we've already covered them, because my joint two favourites are issue 5 and issue 8. So
yeah,
and for very much the same reasons that you've talked about. But to sort of to add to what you've both been saying, a lot of the things that I liked in issue 8, and the point that Rahul was talking about with whether it's they're numb to it, you know, willingly, or if it's something that they're not aware of. I kind of feel like, and this is going to be no surprise to Rahul, he's probably seen this coming before we even started the episode, but I got a lot of echoes of Stephen King's It. Because not only, you know, do you have the and I'm not going to do too many spoilers for it, you know, just general talk, but you not only get the similarities between sort of Pennywise and the entity that Pennywise is and the Ice Cream Man, in that it's very personal horror in each of these stories. It's not just, I'm going to turn into something scary or I'm going to do something insidious. It's, I'm going to take something that is a deep-seated fear of yours, whether it's an actual fear that, you know, like the werewolf that sucks the cat's skin off its bones that turns up at the end of issue 1, or like the heroin addicts and, you know, and the rock and roll guy, and the fear of failure, the fear of all these intrinsic things that a person is afraid of on a instinctive level. But it's also the town itself. So issue 5 is where what you were saying, Rahul, where issue 8 is where it sort of grows its beard and starts to sort of spread out and become this bigger thing. I think the beginning of that was issue 5, but issue 8 is where it blossoms. So in issue 8, it becomes the entire town, and you're physically seeing everyone's just gone nuts. But in issue 5, it's in this tower block that this guy is falling window to window as he's, you know, just committing, you know, in the process of committing suicide. But you see these, like the woman in the boardroom, and, you know, Veronica's telling her to get out, and she's like, I'll get out, you know, I don't care if the whole Cincinnati Zoo's in here, I'm not going until I get my back pay. And her eyes are literally being eaten by vultures, and she's like, I'm going to have to call you back, Jan, because it's like, at that point when you're reading it, you're like, is this surreal? Is this what's legitimately happening? Or are we seeing a version of like Veronica's panic? But then by the time you get to issue 8, you realize that, yes, certain people in the town are blind to how bad things have gotten. Some people are living their lives and just, you know, taken advantage of by the Ice Cream Man. But apart from when the Ice Cream Man enters their life, everything's fine. But then there are other people, like the couple, the lesbian couple, where the one of the partners has set fire to the house, and they're having an argument in the middle of a burning house.
Yes,
it's so overblown, but it's also, again, much like it's doing the thing where it's an argument that a couple would have, but because they are in this town, which is very much like the town of Derry and it's so overblown that it could be happening in the burning house where neither of them are trying to escape, because the influence of the Ice Cream Man and the influence of the town are just sort of magnifying it so much. And that spreads on to, you know, Rick and Caleb and the dichotomy of those two as well. You know, you've got this elemental force of, you know, it's not so much like Pennywise that it fears on fear, but it feeds, the Ice Cream Man seems to feed and, you know, be the embodiment of just pure negativity.
Yeah, and then
Caleb is pure positivity.
Yeah.
And so you've got this with the gosh, what's the volume called again? Sorry.
Hopscotch Melange.
Yes, with Hopscotch Melange. You've got this wonderful thing where you're shown the beginnings of their relationship, or not the beginnings, but for our sakes, the beginnings of their relationship, all the way to what could conceivably be the end of time or the end of humanity.
But it's not the end, because at the end of that one, it's on to the next one.
Exactly. And that leads me into an idea that I had about the series as well, which is choice. It kind of feels like they're going from universe to universe, and negativity and positivity are playing out. And it seems like every time the ice cream man wins, everybody ends up going to the sweet place, everything goes to shit, and then Caleb just says, on to the next one, we'll see if it goes right the next time, because he's waiting for some shift to happen where people make the right choices.
But the point of the sweet place is it's the sweet place. People have a sweet tooth, and people almost like, I mean, the old saying that misery loves company, and people enjoy, to some extent, feeling sorry for themselves, or being like it's. I mean, in that boardroom scene that you mentioned, where the woman's eye has been eaten out by the vulture, it's like literally selfishness.
It's like
she's
delicious
like numb
suffering.
to her own. Yeah. She's like, I'm suffering, and you know, it's just my selfishness or whatever, and she is being fed upon by the ice cream man.
Yeah.
By this force, and that is represented in the fact that the vulture is eating her. And like, I just want to actually just talk about some of the technique in that issue, actually, because Ballad of a Fallen Man is my favorite for another reason. And it's my favorite for literally the first page is a absolutely amazing perspective shot. I don't know if you've noticed it, but like when you just look at the first page and you've just got this like beautiful perspective shot of all these buildings.
Oh god, yeah, I've just opened it back up.
And you get vertigo looking at, if you're scared of heights, that page could set you off. I'm not joking.
Yeah, that is fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, like just this like it perfectly conveys like the feeling of vertigo and the feeling of being so small atop such a huge high thing. Like if you look at the scale there, like the scale of the guy standing on the edge compared to the width and the height of those buildings, and how, you know, he like just how dwarfed he is by it, and then obviously we've got these vertical panels, this technique where they do this a lot in Ice Cream Man, actually, where they have one page and then they lay panels over a larger image.
Yeah.
But then you've got these like beautiful vertical panels where it's him falling, and you never lose throughout the whole thing, throughout all the scale. And even when we see the boardroom and he's there falling past the window in the background of like the sort of overarching panel, as I'll call it, in the boardroom, before we get the other images of the woman on the phone and the vulture. It's like you never lose sight of the perspective and of the size and the scale of the building throughout the whole thing. That seems to be like an overarching thing that has kept going throughout the issue.
It keeps your eye moving from the top to the bottom of the page.
Yeah,
your eyes are constantly falling.
Yes, that's it. You're falling with him. And even actually the bit where Valerie is, well, maybe it's Valerie, I don't know, is running down the stairs.
Veronica.
Yeah, same difference. Where she...
Oh, I see. Yes.
Yeah.
It just clicks. Sorry, carry on.
I was making a funny.
No,
where she's like, where she's running down the stairs.
Yeah.
The full page where she's running down the stairs, and it shows you like the staircase, like sinking all the way to the bottom.
That's a tricky vertigo shot as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect. It's just absolutely perfect. And like just the construction of this issue alone, based on the perspective and scale, with these beautiful falling shots and everything, and then like ending with street pizza. Like the page before street pizza, where we've got like these panels as he's falling and getting smaller, and less significant, to the point where he's almost nothing, and then he is nothing. Like he's fading out, like just such a beautifully put together issue. And I think that's what makes it one of my favorites as well. The fact that it's just so spot on with all of that.
Well, I think of this issue, I think one of my favorite pages is when, like you said, you've got the background shot happening behind three other panels that are stripped in verticality.
Is it the one where you got the purple background by any chance?
Yes, 100% that one. Yeah, because I like that before that you have it's quite structured and ordered, and you have that sense of falling from the top and like that building momentum that you have at the very start of a jump, and you get to you see the ground as it's approaching. You can see your destination. But in this one, everything's really
surreal,
discombobulated, like he's twisted in midair, and you get that sense of being halfway through his descent, and like his perspective being manipulated, and the fact that the color's gone all strange, and the panels that overlay the background aren't even consistent to themselves either, and it shifts the technique they'd been using up until this point, and I really like that sense of dislocation this page gave me.
That's him talking about falling in reverse because he doesn't know whether he's still high or not from all the drugs he did in the 70s.
Exactly, yeah.
Preceding page has got chimps in accounting, which is perfect. I love it.
Yeah. Just in case you thought it was a little too grounded.
Yeah, exactly. No, but like this whole like falling up thing when he starts talking about that, like closing his eyes and making his eyes go dark and seeing all the colours and stuff. It's just like it is brilliant. And then we get like after that you got like the perspective shots with the hallway. But I think the overarching point of people are tiny, and in the grand scale of things, insignificant.
Yeah,
is perfectly communicated with this issue. And of the first 5 issues, like that one was my favorite, and then issue 8 came along and stole its thunder.
Well, I think. Sorry, can you finish your point?
I was just going to say by being what it is, and giving us the everything else. But yeah,
well, to follow on from that, I think the thing I like about issue 5 is it's the first of what I was going to use the word gimmick, but I think that's selling it short. I think it's the start of the more conceptual issues that we start getting. So it's stuff like 5, Ballad of a Falling Man, and then we get 6, which is Strange Neapolitan, where it's the one where we follow kind of like a Run Lola Run type situation, where you see the same character going through 3 different like alternate split timelines or universes or whatever, or you see 3 different eventualities that could occur in a triptych on every single page, which I think is a really interesting concept. And then we get, I'm just going to rattle off a couple more, which was number 13, which was palindromes, which we talked about in episode 70. And that's the one where you can read the comic both backwards and forwards from both outside edges, and they meet in the middle. And then number 14, which was another one that's also on my favorites list, which was Down and Across, which is the one that's kind of laid out like a crossword puzzle. And I think that's something that I like, is that they're consistently finding new quote-unquote gimmicks or concepts to play with, and like which can only be done in this visual medium. And they're constantly finding new ways to do that.
I don't want to call it gimmicks.
Which is why I said it in inverted commas. I'm very careful not to call it like it's not a throwaway thing. They genuinely put effort into the artistry of like, what can we glean from this concept, and then how can we use it to build onto the story, as opposed to it just being a cool looking thing, In
the same way, this incredibly talented creative team that we have here on Ice Cream Man, which I feel in this episode long overdue reading out of names. So it's written by W. Maxwell Prince. The art is by Martin Morazzo. Colors are by Chris O'Halloran. Lettering by Good Old Neon. And it's just, I mean, that team they're just so consistent throughout the whole series. But it's almost like these guys are all very accomplished. In fact, they are very accomplished at their job in the creation of the comic, in their input. That they can, like a jam band, a jazz jam band, I guess, where they can start to play and jam and come up with new and interesting stuff and start riffing off each other. And then that's when you get these new and interesting things that they do when they play with the comics format in such a way as to make a comic that you can read forwards and backwards. I mean, I was saving palindromes because I wanted to talk about it in relation to this stuff, because I just love the fact that I love that comic, and I love the way that it is perfectly mirrored and you can read it forwards and backwards, and I love what it represents. I think when we talked about it on the cast, we talked a lot about how it represents the cyclical nature of grief and intrusive thoughts, and how you are standing on the precipice of having an intrusive thought, and then you fall through it and you travel through it, and then you convince yourself and you come out of the other side of that, of this funk or this depression or whatever, and then you're standing on the precipice of it again, ready to fall back in like it's a half pipe.
And to add on to some of the language you used earlier, I think one of the points I made in that episode was that it's not perfectly mirrored, and I like that you're kind of bouncing back and forth between like the bad music and your grief, and then you come out of your reverie and you go through it again. You ping pong back and forth through that process, but it's not quite the same each time, or it's not quite the same in reverse. And I like that they think through these things, and that issue isn't just. It's not "quote unquote" just mirrored. Like there's a lot.
No, it's not. It's a swinging pendulum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because you've got beginning, end, and it. Well, they are almost the panels are almost the same, but it's like you're looking at it in a different way because you're reading it in a different way. And the artistry there is that they've managed to create something that when you read it in a different way, it's different.
But my point was it's not just narratively palindrome.
It's not.
It's also not just a flipped mirror image of the first half of the comic. They've actually it's done in reverse shot order as well in terms of its layout on the page, and that has its own meaning to it as well. And I like that it's more than just. Again, I keep using this because it's the point I'm trying to make is that it would be so easy to come up with a quote unquote gimmick where the first 12 pages are identical to the last 12 pages. They're just mirrored and copied twice. But this team has done more than that. They've taken more time and more effort and have put more thought into the concept than just mirroring it, and added a level of thought to what that can represent. And that's why I admire these books so much.
It like a group of accomplished musicians that all possibly play a different style of music. You put them in a room together and they jam, and you get something truly special. And
sure,
and these guys they seem to be just having fun with comics. Like I've never seen the comics medium treated in such a malleable way as I have through the lens of Ice Cream Man. Like in the way that they do these things with page layouts, with palindromic comics, it's just like, I mean, like when you were talking about Down and Across, the crossword puzzle, it's laid out in such a way, and you've got these panel breaks where it is like the black space in a crossword puzzle or the white space in a crossword puzzle, and they play with that in the panels being part of the crossword puzzle. And then the way it's written as well, like when it's written like in the form of a crossword puzzle, like keywords are answers to clues, and he reads out the clue in the narration. The narrator being I haven't quite worked out if the narrator is the guy who enjoys the puzzles or if it is the Ice Cream Man. But in the narration, it's just
it kind of feels like it's a little bit of both, doesn't it?
It does in this particular issue,
yeah. I quite enjoy the way they represent anxiety in this issue as well. The anxiety of the wife, all alone, left to her thoughts in the house, believing that the contractors are out to kill her. I mean, they could be. We don't really ever learn the truth. Are they? Aren't they? I mean, like, are they a bunch of drugged up drifters? Like, or are they actually just honest to good contractors? I guess we'll never know the truth. But the way it represents it, the way it does her anxiety, where it's like, there's this one point in the book where she goes out there to chew them out for taking their shirts off, and then she turns her back. And this is what I was going to come on to with the lettering techniques that are in use here, because the way they do that, like the difference with the lettering between something that is supposedly just inside a character's head may or may not be, and something that is actually happening, or the difference in like the difference in the voices, like the voice in the head, or the bad voice and the good voice. So like when the bad music starts, like the difference in the bad voice, like the way it's got like this kind of like black speech bubble with white text, this wrinkled edges on it, like it's meant to sound rough and or it's meant to sound strained and creepy. They do this in Ballad of a Falling Man as well, with when he's falling, there's like a point where LiCkEtY splat just like that. But it's like bouncy lettering, almost like the Joker's talking in a Batman comic. It's a similar technique to how they convey like the insanity of the Joker, like the cadence of his voice and how you're supposed to sound like Mark Hamill. when it's like the Joker is Mark Hamill in my head. But then again, so this is like Mark Hamill's Joker voice in my head, in the way that it's like the cadence of it is because the letters are all slightly off kilter. There's a bounce to it, and it's more of a scrawly typeface rather than the clean like normal narration face that we get.
Well, this panel's like the panel you're talking about in particular. Is a really good example of the entire team working in chorus together, because it is. Yeah. You've got the writing, which is paced perfectly to give that sense of anxiety from the two protagonists in this issue. You've got the layout, which uses the concept of the crossword puzzle, but sort of like zoomed in a myopic way, because it's not immediately obvious that the pauses, the black and white spaces, are from the crossword. I mean, it's obvious when you know the concept, but if you just looked at this page in isolation, you'd think that the black and white squares were sort of out of place blank spots, and they're used perfectly to like paste that, or to affect the pacing, because it puts you on edge and it makes you wonder why things are happening, why there's pauses in the action. And then you've got the color work, which suddenly shifts in unison with the shifting, creepy, scratched out lettering, which represents the way that she thinks they're talking about her behind her back. And there's a lot of these things happening in unison together. I think it's a good representation of that team sort of clearly communicating with each other about, or if not communicating directly, but having an understanding of the things that they're all trying to go for, and they're all leading in the same direction together.
And that's why I enjoy that issue, because of the way it represents anxiety and the way it represents like the intrusive thoughts and everything else, and also in the way that it does it ends on a hopeful note.
I was going to say this issue comes back to what I was saying with the underlying thing of choice and hope, because the whole issue, it feels like the ice cream man, whatever or whoever he is trying to push these two people apart in the most horrible and visceral way possible. He's filling this guy's head with like all of the anxieties that he has, whether they're real or not, about her cheating on him, about them not being good together, about all this stuff. And at the same time, it's like winding her up into a frenzy where she's ready to kill what she thinks are attackers. And it's like either he kills himself because of all the bad thoughts in his head, or he gets home and Rita kills him thinking that he's one of the attackers. And either way, win-win, the ice cream man gets another guy for the sweet place. But in the end, they go a different path, and they end up getting, being closer together than they have been in years. And, scratch that up as a loss for the ice cream man. But it's because of tiny little choices that they made throughout the issue.
Well, yeah, it's him making the choice to put the gun down and go home. And I mean, she pulls the trigger, but it's almost like
her heart wasn't in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't really know whether she missed on purpose or whether she just missed that shock when she saw him come through the door or what. But yeah, it's
luck, I suppose.
Yeah, if it's luck, yeah. I mean, the end of the issue, the final line is good luck, isn't it?
Yeah.
One last point for this issue is it has my favorite line, I think, of everything I've read so far in Ice Cream Man, where I think the concept is they're talking about filling in a crossword, fill in the grid, and the quote is, like a maggot traveling the length of a corpse's body, which there's something about that just, normally I'm not that affected by like visual prose that way, but there's something about the concept of a maggot traveling the length of a body that's in the state of like falling apart, that just, there's something in it that just makes my gut squirm. It's really effective writing for me, at least.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. I really do.
That's why, I mean, I don't know if we're ready to get onto, there isn't a real order for the order that we're talking about issues, but I love issue 1 because Strange Neapolitan was the other one that was in my list of 3 that I picked because I tried to narrow it down as much as I could.
Of your favorites, you mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Because obviously the entire series is my favorites, but 5 and 8 were tied, and then Strange Neapolitan was like a close second. But issue 1, I have a lot of love for because it's. I said it before. I don't know if it was on cast or off cast, but it's one of the best intros to a story that I've ever seen. And when you were saying about visual prose, the whole thing of the facts and figures. First you're introduced to the ice cream man, and you're instantly put off by him slightly. You don't know why. There's nothing nefarious about him at all yet, but he just doesn't seem right. And then it moves from the normal speech bubbles to the narrator giving us, cold facts about the Brazilian wandering spider. And it's just like page after page, panel after panel about how venomous the spider is, all the records it has broken, all of the facts and figures, what kind of neurotoxin it uses to kill its prey. And then you get into the house and he has the spider. And it's just the slow lead up to that reveal, I think, is just done so well.
I think it's a credit to the writing in the way that the ice cream man is introduced when he's selling ice cream to these children at the beginning of this book. And there's a particular panel where the young girl chooses vanilla, and he gets her the vanilla cone ready, and he hands it to her. And if you look at his facial expression as he's handing her the cone, it's like this almost like, it's like a really insidious smile. Like you can see like his brow is slightly furrowed. He's looking down at the child. He's like, here, haven't, and his teeth look quite sharp. It's like he's not totally, he's not totally unassuming. For a split second, he looks ever so slightly evil and creepy in that image. And I think that is what it is. Like, in a credit to the artist here as well, like in the way that they managed to get the facial expressions in. So the subtlety of the change in facial expression to give you that kind of like impression of, that he's unassuming, and then to do something so subtle as that, to twist his smile ever so slightly, or to twist his brow ever so slightly, to give him the kind of like a completely different aura, if you will, when it comes off the page. In such a way.
Sorry, go on.
No, I'm done. Carry on.
Okay, I was going to say, because it kind of helps that the cover of issue 1 has the ice cream man as like fucked up Pied Piper holding up an ice cream cone, and all the kids sort of staring lovingly up at it. Like, I think we're supposed to know from the get go that there's something up with this dude. But yes, I like the slow build in comic.
Yeah,
that could equally be an advert for ice cream.
True.
Like, equally, I mean, like, you don't have to look at it that way, because he's smiling. He looks, that cover, he looks fairly innocuous there.
I don't know, there's a few of the kids at the back who look like they're smiling and straining at the same time.
Yeah, because they're just like, they want the ice cream, man.
Is that how you feel when you want ice cream? Like, strained? Like, you have to put my happy face.
Depends how far I have to go to get said ice cream. Like, if I have to walk, like, I don't know, because I don't own a car, right? So if I want good ice cream, like the good ice cream, like Ben and Jerry's or something, I have to walk all the way to the supermarket.
All the way to the sweet place.
Yes. All the way to the frozen aisle. Where Rick, standing there in a Morrison's outfit, hands me a pot of my favourite flavour, peanut butter cup.
LiCkEtY split.
Yeah. I could just imagine him actually, like that would be like how, if I was in an Ice Cream Man comic, that would be how it would begin. It would be me, all the narration would be song lyrics. And it would be me walking with my headphones on from my house to Morrison's. Rick would be standing there in a Morrison's Morrison's uniform, like stocking the freezers, the ice creams. And I would come down the aisle and I would be looking for the peanut butter cup ice cream, and he would just tap me on the shoulder and hand it to me, and it would be silent because I'm wearing the headphones. And then as I walk away, it's got the colourful bad music notes coming from the headphones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I've not quite worked out what would happen after that. That's as far as I've got.
What's your deepest fear, Greg?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of them have already been played out in the pages of Ice Cream Man, which I think is what resonates with me, because I used to have a recurring nightmare about being a drug addict. God knows why. But I used to have a recurring nightmare, and then I read issue 2 of this with the heroin addict, and I was just like, yeah. You know, that's like one of my worst fears. Even though it's like super irrational and outlandish, because like I would never do anything like that. Ever. But I just used to have this recurring nightmare about, like, I would, in my nightmare, I think it's because I watched the documentary where it was like a video diary for some guy. They showed it as, did they show it as while we were at school? Or I think they may have showed it as while I was at school. There's this video diary of a guy who tries to get clean. And he goes to a Buddhist temple or something. But like, he's, at the beginning, it's like a video. It's him in his house because he's living at his parents' house. But I had this like this recurring nightmare where I would wake up and look over, and my bookshelf would just be at my mother's house, like my old bedroom. The bookshelf would just be full of like dirty needles, used needles and stuff, and it was me, you know, and it was just weird. But yeah.
If you want to relive that terrifying nightmare, which it sounds like you don't, but I'm going to give you some advice if you do, check out, I don't know if you've ever known this, but I only found this quite recently. Darren Aronofsky of Requiem for a Dream fame, which is the best film which can tells you not to do just don't do drugs. If you need to be told not to do drugs, watch Requiem for a Dream. I think the state of Montana also asked him to create a series of anti-meth adverts, which are really goddamn terrifying. Yeah, check this out. I literally only found it like a week ago.
Wow. It feels like it's a direct sequel to the movie, basically.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it was after the film, and they picked him specifically because of how well he represented the tragedy of descending into drug addiction.
Well, I feel that that's fairly well represented in issue 2 of Ice Cream Man as well.
Well, yeah, I think they would be they're good bedfellows.
Yes, but yeah, I mean, it's just. Yeah, it like this book, it gets so close to some of my worst fears and nightmares.
Well, speaking of that, Marvyn, do you have anything that's represented in this comic that like hits a bit too close to the bone for you?
I was trying to think as you were talking, actually. There's nothing that stands out to me as a specific, like, deep fear. I mean, you know me, I've always had a horrible relationship with mortality. So the issue, oh gosh, which number is it? Hold on. I'll find it faster in my notes, won't I? 2 seconds. Chris in the Sweet Place. Issue 4.
Every Good Boy Does Fine?
Is that issue 4?
Yeah, Every Good Boy Does Fine, the funeral one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so just the narrator, Chris, well, not the narrator, but the Deadpool style bubble that keeps coming up. That's like, this isn't right. You know, why does it keep changing? And then all of the things that he's put through, it kind of was like, you know, the sweet place. The idea of the sweet place being this, well, just hell, this torturous otherworld where the things that hurt you the most in life are just replayed over and over again. That probably was the one that gave me a shiver down the back of my neck the most, even though the whole book is just delightfully horrifying.
There's a great design in that issue. It's like the sort of like the ice cream creature.
Yes.
The one that tells him, you died and now you're here. Easy peasy, lickety split. I love the design of the ice cream creature. with the screaming faces on its back and stuff.
Yeah.
That's just amazing. But yeah, I mean, and
it's like dripping ice cream, isn't it? It could be like a scoop of something.
Yeah, it's great. But
it's like a horror version of Pizza the Hut from Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
But it's just and then the preceding page where you've got like the 9 panels, and then one of them is like bleeding over the panel, the child crying, him crying as a child, but it's like his dad leaving in different ways every time, and his dad slowly melts and becomes the ice cream creature.
Yeah, I think anything that does that kind of twisted repetition where you can't tell if it's the same moment happening over and over again, or like it's genuinely something that is happening over and over again, like that kind of stuff makes my skin crawl. For me, it would be, I think there's just far too many mentions of bugs covering beautiful things when viewed close. And I think that comes to a head in, I think, issue... Oh, let me find it. The one that's at the end of Hopscotch Melange, Part 4 Space Story, which is issue 12. Yeah. And there's an explicit scene where he's looking at a flower, and it turns out to be kind of like disgusting and covered in bugs up close. And like I have this is personal to me because like I have a creeping vine on my balcony which I bought, and it's beautiful and lovely. But towards the end of summer, we started getting like spider mites, like tiny little bugs that aren't actually spiders but look like, from a distance, if you looked at it and you squinted a bit, it looked like dust was crawling up and down the vines and the leaves. And then I started noticing like almost invisibly thin webs tracing like paths from the stems to the leaves. And then at some point over a weekend while we were away from home, the webs had become so prominent you could like see them from a distance, and it was like the webs were like devouring the plant, and you could genuinely see like a shifting movement happening on the plant, and you couldn't figure out what it was. And then when you look up close, the whole thing was just fucking covered in these tiny little like dust particle sized little
like aphids
spider mites. They're called spider mites. So then what I did was I had to, like, they were basically sapping the life from the plant, turning all the leaves brown, and I thought like it was a lost cause. This beautiful vine that I bought, like one of the first plants that I bought for my new place, was like being taken over by this horrible alien, hive mind spider mite bullshit. And then so I spent some time like trimming the plant, spraying insecticide and vinegar and anti-mite spray and stuff, and like I can't see any of the bugs moving along the plant anymore, but the webs won't go away on their own. They're not like dissolving or anything. They're sort of just stuck there, and I'm a little bit too grossed out to go in and like clean off the vines. And so I've like tried to take some care and like cut off all of the brown bits. So basically the whole plant is brown, but now has like splashes of green erupting from the midst of 100 dead like vine paths, because it seems that the plant is actually still alive and it's like regrowing life, but it's surrounded by all this death. And it's like I've got this representation of this image from Ice Cream Man sat on my balcony, and I don't know what to do about it.
The plant's going to the sweet place, right?
It's fucking horrible. Like I don't want to give up on it. I don't want to just like put it in a bag and chuck it away.
I was going to say that means Rahul's Caleb in this. He's just frantically trying to trim off all the dead bits.
Because it's starting life again. I didn't think it would, but like there's some life left in the thing. I can't just destroy it and start again. It feels too cruel. Like this.
On to the next one, Ray.
On to the next one. I don't want it to be on to the next one. I'm gonna cling to this one. I'm gonna have some resolve and clean it up and save it.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, Marv, issue 4 is actually the first appearance of Caleb, because that's when he turns up at the end of issue 4.
Yes,
where he walks up to the ice cream truck. Yeah, almighty, you're still at it. Yeah, no,
I love the fact, again, sort of visual storytelling, because you've got, the first 3 issues and like the first 2/3 of this one. The Ice Cream Man is the focus. The Ice Cream Man feels unstoppable, just like this force that has the town. And then this guy walks up to him, this cowboy walks up to him, says a few words, and the last couple of panels, he's gripping the side of the ice cream van so hard that he's bent in the metal.
I love that touch,
man.
It's the only thing that can stand up to him.
Yeah,
is this guy that's been my kind of equal, my mirror image, my reflection since time immemorial.
Marv, you brought up Stephen King earlier, and like it's hard to talk about anything horror based without sort of it tying into Stephen King at some point.
This is all incredibly Stephen King.
But I think the first issue of Hopscotch Melange really hit me with Dark Tower vibes.
Yeah,
I don't know if you got that. A lot, because it's like the Dust Bowl, decrepit, like post-apocalyptic world, and the fact that it's this cowboy sort of theme. And then some of the themes of the story overall, and maybe the theme of Hopscotch Melange in general, without giving too much away about the Dark Tower, I guess. But I think there's some things overlapping there, which I think are quite cool.
I like the whole thing being an homage to King with his like recurring characters and stuff, like Caleb and Rick.
Yeah.
Well, it's not even
ending.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's not even just Caleb and Rick in terms of recurring characters. It's like in issue 2 when you've got the oh no, is it issue 2? Sorry, no, the triptych episode, the triptych issue 6.
Yeah.
Where you look at the panels, I can't remember what page it is, but there's the 3 panels obviously, and it's him walking through a park, and in each of the different realities on the bench is a different character from previous issues.
Yeah.
And then even later on, where you've got the TV show episode, and you've got Chris's friend, the black guy, he's in the basement in the sweet place. So it's like there are these stories going on where people are being claimed and you're just not seeing it. It's happening to everyone, you know?
Yeah. The Kardashians, man. I've just noticed, by the way, like my favorite issues, like 8 and 5, and then 13. 1408. It's just...
there you go.
Yeah.
All the way back to King again.
Exactly, yeah. No, but like I 8 and 5 make 13. It's just some weird coincidence I've just noticed when I'm looking at the run sheet. But I just wanted to bring up the triptych issue because Strange Neapolitan, when you were talking about that, like what do you feel is the most insidious timeline on there for you?
I mean, I think for me, the most insidious timeline for me is the bottom one, the orange level,
the brown one. Chocolate.
The brown one. The chocolate one. Sorry, I know it's meant to be brown, not orange.
Yeah, it looks orange, because it's a brown filter, but yeah.
That is, because it's like with the story that Ray was just saying, it's all bugs. There's bugs in the ice cream, this horrible egg hatches, and there's bugs, and a little bird comes out of it, and then at the end, the diseased bird comes out of his chest. But if you wanted to ask me what the worst one is, it's the strawberry. Because the pain in the strawberry is just it's so raw.
The alcoholism and gosh,
the alcoholism and the baby.
Yeah. Do you know what I think is the worst one?
Go on.
I think it's vanilla.
I knew it.
Are you kidding me? Like, you are the poster boy for wanting to live in a cabin in the woods with a dog. Come on.
No. The problem isn't living in a cabin in the woods with a dog. The problem is moving away and being so selfish as to keep that dog from the family that loved it.
Okay.
And to hide in a cabin in the woods just so nobody else can have that dog apart from you. Like, the sheer selfishness of it, the level of selfishness that comes with that. Well, it's not dog owner. He finds the dog injured and it's a lost dog, and he sees the poster and he just chooses to fucking ignore the poster and keep that dog to himself. Like, forget the guy with the vulture mask on cutting chunks out of him. Forget, the tragedy with the death of the baby. Like, the tragedy of that family that's never going to see that dog again.
You see, I have this constant conversation with a lot of my friends where it's
the poor dog having to live in isolation because he has to keep the secret, this secret that he's stolen this dog from its life, and the dog doesn't. I mean, the dog's living in isolation. The dog doesn't really know any better. The dog
doesn't give a shit. He's being fed bacon direct from the pan. He's fine.
There you go.
Sorry, Marv, you're about to say the.
No, I have this constant conversation with a lot of my friends where it's sort of like humans versus animals, where there's like loads of people I know where they're like, oh no, I could watch 100 people die on screen, but don't show me a dead dog in a movie. Don't show me a movie where the dog dies. And I'm like, it's a fucking dog. Like, I am in essence an animal person, but I would 100% save a person over an animal. So I know you're the opposite, but I love the fact, like, literally, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you skip back like 25, maybe 30 seconds. You literally said the line, "Forget the tragedy of the dead baby and the and the relationship breaking down. Think about that poor dog being fed bacon and the family who probably bought another puppy and gotten over it."
it that way. I said the tragedy of the death of the baby.
That's exactly how I heard it.
I'm glad you said it, Marv.
But I suppose the one thing that we can
I mean, I didn't mean it like that. It is horrible and tragic, but I just feel like the because the guy is
being that selfish.
It's bad things happening to him in the top one and the bottom one. But in the middle one, he is the bad thing. He's doing the bad thing.
Yeah, and it does speak to it speaks to how the whole series of comics speaks to different things in different people and hits them in different ways.
But it's the worst one because rather than tragedy befalling him, he's creating tragedy.
Yeah,
he didn't. All these other two things, him being murdered or tortured, is not. That's not because of him. That and then all these him meeting this woman and having a child and then the child dying and everything else, that's not because of him.
Yeah, he's the victim of tragedy in Strawberry and Chocolate,
but
he's the
middle one's the worst one because he's not the victim of tragedy, but he is the
arbiter of it,
the arbiter of tragedy. If you understand,
I cannot relate because I'm not really a dog person, but
it's not about being a dog person. It's about seeing that, like, in the top two, he's absolved. He's guilt free. He's absolved. He's done nothing wrong. He is just in an unfortunate. It's just horrible and unfortunate and horrific, these things that are happening to him. But it's not none of his fault. He has a clear conscience. But in the middle one, he's having such a great time, but his conscience is not clear.
But you say he has a clear conscience. I think the theme that ties the three flavors together is him being afraid of how horrible a person he is. Because, in the bottom panel, it constantly over and over again, there's something awful inside of you. There's something awful inside of you. And then in the Strawberry, the top panel, it's kind of like you imagine he was a shitty person before. And then he's like, I'm going to start a relationship. I'm going to be a better person. And then
so it's like karma.
It's really visceral, but like the idea of there's something awful inside of you is like he had a baby that started vomiting up black ichor. It's not that
has something on. Or,
it's like it might not even be that he medically passed something on. It might just be a manifestation of the fear that he is a horrible person and that he's going to pass on those horrible traits to his offspring.
Yeah,
so it's just
passing
all
on
three
the
panels.
Bad thing in him into the next. It's the anxiety of like I'm a bad person and I make other people bad. I infect them like a disease.
Exactly, and that's a fear that everyone I think has, apart from the most confident people in the world.
But the point is, the top and bottom one aren't his fault. The middle one is him, carrying on.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, and being the disease.
It's kind of like the top and bottom ones are kind of like the fear of what he's trying to repress in him, and then the middle one is like him just kind of letting it loose and being like, you know what, I'm going to do what betters me and fuck everyone else.
Yeah, and it's the reason. This is the reason I feel the middle one's the worst, because it's the selfishness.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah. It's nothing to do with being a dog person or an animal or whatever. It's just it's just how it is, and that's just how I feel. But yeah, I mean, I know that the top one's horrible. I know the bottom one's horrible, but there we go. Another man for the sweet place.
Yeah, well, different things for different people, isn't it? And I do love, even though it's a bit on the nose, I do love the fact that the dog's name is Triptych.
Well, yeah. But that's what I enjoy about this comic, that it can do things like that, and it can be like incredibly on the nose, like especially in palindromes as well. Like it doesn't shy away from it. It literally like lives for the fact that it's a palindrome, that comic. But as on the nose as it is, it's still perfect, and it doesn't feel like it's putting too much syrup on the sundae, if you will. It just does what it does, and it does it incredibly well. I mean, other key issues that I think do what they do incredibly well and really showcase the power of this series as an anthology that kind of explores the cosmic battle between bad and good, and hope and hopelessness and despair and everything else. And the kind of philosophical idea of despair being the sweet place, because you hear that a lot. People talk about sweet misery and everything else, and then what you were saying, Marv, about choices as well is the comic with these comics feel so alive. It's like watching TV.
Definitely.
No, it's the issue with the young girl who's mourning her friend.
Yes, I was just going to start talking about that one. Yes.
Yeah,
and
because I love. Yeah, carry on.
Oh, no, just because I know you're going to deep dive, but I just wanted to quickly say it ties in again to this sort of the similarities to Pennywise in that she's going through her personal trauma, and when the ice cream man captures her towards the end of the issue, it's very much physical, like visual fear. It's like, you're a child, so I'm going to be something scary. I'm going to be flaying someone alive in front of you, rather than it being a more adult fear of this insidious, you've got something awful inside of you.
It's also a weird case of like one of the, to my memory, it's got some of the most violent imagery in this comic, which is centered around a child. Like, am I right in thinking that? Because you see this guy like skinned alive, and it's the young child that has to witness that.
But then I think that goes back to it as well. It's like the things that the mind of a child can live through and get over is totally different to what, like, the things that Pennywise shows kids, adults go absolutely insane when they see. Whereas because of how big a kid's imagination is, they can kind of work through it a little bit.
I also mean, though, literally the violence on the page. I feel like that's one of the first instances we get in these first run of issues that's that graphic.
Yeah, definitely.
I just think the juxtaposition of like the violence of that image and the fact that it's centered in a kid's story is quite shocking.
But it's like it's through the lens of her imagination as well, because we keep getting these panels that are laid out like her sketchbook, where she's making a story about her and her friend, conquering some kind, on some kind of quest, and they go through the forest at night, and they need lanterns, but then even drawing parallels between this and like I think it's less It for me, and it's more the Brothers Grimm.
Yeah,
because it just has that, like, I mean, like, going back to the violence on the page and everything else, like, you think of the original fairy tales. Like, we always hear these stories. Like, everyone will always say, like, when you start talking about like Little Red Riding Hood, everyone will always say, oh, well, the original one's much worse because in the original one this happens. But like, this is kind of playing on that a little bit. Do you see?
Yeah.
So the writing here, in the way that we see this man flayed alive on the table in like the witch's cabin or whatever, which in a storybook would probably be made of gingerbread, but in this it's just made of rotten wood. It's kind of the thing, like, she would be, like, this witch eats people in this children's story. I mean, even in a sanitized version that I read as a kid, she locks them in an oven and tries to cook them, It's like, that's pretty bad. That's like cannibalism in a kid's story. No wonder I grew up weird. No, but like, it's just like, this is how it is, and you've got her sanitized version through her sketchbook, and then or through the child's mind, and then you've got what's actually happening, and it's like grim fairy tale stuff. Like the sanitized version, when it gets to it, is her drawing of this devil character with a cat in a boiling pot, and the two kids tied up in chairs side by side. And then, like, you see what's actually happening, and you've got Rick looking like very demonic over this green pot, like chucking bugs in, with this dude like lashed to the bed in the background, like completely flayed. And he flayed him with a potato peeler as well. I mean, the slowest way to flay someone, I think, would be a potato peeler, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Why are we laughing?
Because he's got no skin, Rahul. He's got no skin.
It's hilarious.
There's comedy in that somewhere. There's comedy in the use of the potato peeler.
I was just being the straight man.
I don't know where it is. I haven't quite found where the joke is, but I just know there's something hilarious about that potato peeler. I think I don't know why I find that funny. I just, but yeah. So he's flayed the guy with a potato peeler of all things, and like then he's all of a sudden he's got spied, and then Caleb turns up and saves the day, like the hero, the woodsman, if you will.
This is what I really like about the Caleb introduction is we only get like glimpses of him, and then we barely have much of him before we see him being like killed at the end of issue number 8. You know, where he's in the back of the ambulance, and we see throughout that entire issue, we see his heartbeat slowly decline, and we don't realize who's narrating until they open the back of the van doors, the ambulance doors, and we see that it's him. And the EMTs have like neglected to save him; they just forgotten that he was in the back. Well, yeah, and I think that's a really good introduction to a hero. I think, like seeing him save the day a couple of times, and then he's dead, and then we get hopscotch melange. I think that's really clever pacing, and part of what I mean about how it goes small and big in succession over and over and over again.
But you can't kill an idea, Ray.
I know, yeah, and that's why I love it, because it's like they introduce the idea and then kill it and then feed that concept to us.
Yeah, they literally kill an idea and then bring it back again. But like it's I mean, this is a good example actually. This comic here, My Little Poltergeist, is a good example of how they play with different genres and different styles of writing and different styles of storytelling within the whole that is Ice Cream Man, because this is like in the style of like Grimm fairy tales or whatever. Like you know, an old children's fairy tale where you know there's this creepy witch or a creature, demon living in the woods that lures a child to eat the child, who is then saved by the woodsman, in the most simplistic terms. And it just plays with that, and it plays with the idea of that, but through that it tells a horror story, and it also, you know, has like this underlying narrative of this kid dealing with the grief of the death of her best friend. And like throughout this series, you've got different examples of them playing with different genres. Like with within Hopscotch Melange, you've got the traditional Western. You've got traditional Western storytelling with the tale of the quinceañera story. I can't remember what the actual name of the comic is on that one now.
Border Story.
That's it, Border Story. Yeah. I wanted to call it Borderlands, but I know that's something else entirely. But yeah, like Border Story is almost like the traditional Western. Like it's something that I could have watched on television on a Sunday afternoon, with that kind of like grainy 1950s film. And it would have been about 4 hours long and way more boring than that comic. But, you know, it's like that kind of thing. And like, you've got another example, like sci-fi. It delves into sci-fi.
Yeah.
And
I think the whole point of Hopscotch Melange as a volume is that it's each of the issues is a very specific genre trapping. Like you're saying, it's the Western, the Border Story, the TV show, and the futuristic sci-fi.
Well, yeah, I mean, and issue 1, in fact, of Ice Cream Man, issue 1 is an episode of X-Files.
Yeah.
You know, it just has like this thing where it plays with all these different like different styles of writing, and it does it in such a cool way. And
affectionate. You can tell there's an affection for the genre.
Oh yeah. Like whatever they do lovingly. And
100%.
Yeah, and like in emergencies, it gets really on the nose with the Stephen King thing because there's an actual dead clown.
Yeah, and the thing is, the clown is dead, which is like, you know, it could almost be like a on the nose reference. But the way that the kids get rid of the clown is almost a scene for scene. Well, you know, it's from a book anyway. Reenactment of the death of Adrian Mellon at the beginning of the book. Where I don't know if you've seen the second movie yet, Greg. Where there's a gay guy who gets beaten up by some of the Derry townsfolk. And thrown over a bridge, and that's where Pennywise gets him in the canal underneath the bridge.
Okay.
So it's you know, if they're doing the Stephen King ties there, then they've followed that all the way through to where the clown hits the water.
Yeah.
Do you know No, sorry, go on before I change anything. Go on.
I was going to say it gets really Twin Peaksy in some places as well, in its examination of small town politics. How do I describe this? The kind of like the rot behind the wallpaper that is the rot of suburbia behind the glossy wallpaper or whatever. It's just the
maggot in the ear at the bottom of the picket fence thing.
Yes.
One thing I noticed is like they'd been setting up sort of visual motifs from the very start. So you've got the colourful bad music, you've got the bugs in like the plants and the spider motifs and stuff. And I've noticed in the last couple of issues they've started introducing a couple of new things. So like horned masks is one that I picked up on, and like cross-hatched images. So like obviously starting with the crossword puzzle, where it has the square imagery from the crossword, but then even in issue 15 you have a lot of like square patterned motifs, which then also follow through into the next one, I believe, which is the one about the father and daughter story. And like I'm wondering, have you guys noticed any new motifs popping up in the later issues other than those, or any thoughts on those
masks? And
well, I was gonna, when I was about to rudely interrupt Greg before, I was going to start talking about issue 15 actually, but not for the motifs. I didn't pick up on that. That's something that I'll have to sort of look back and
go into yours.
No, issue 15, I feel like, because of the conversation we've been having, I feel like issue 15 is a really nice sort of confluence of a lot of those themes. Because not only, and I mean, I say this as an outsider, but I think it has a very interesting take on sort of mental illness. But also, it does a wonderful thing with the fears around mental illness and like hereditary diseases of any kind, but also the fear that mental illness is can be passed down. And am I going to turn out like, you know, my mother, my father, my whoever who might have some sort of issue like that?
Which, I mean, there's very real fear for a lot of people.
Exactly. And the anxieties that come through that are really palpable while you read in the comic. And it does the cyclical thing as well, where not as, on the nose as like Palindromes does, but where, you know, you've got the sort of starting in medias res where she's already in the wheelchair and it's, you know, now and then before, but it's sort of like she's spiraling through the whole comic where she's just almost at the end where she's running away from the kid with the balloon. She's just like, I'm not like my mum. I'm not crazy. I'm not like my mum. I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
And then the ice cream man does what he does best.
But you are exactly like your mother. It loops straight back round to that point. And it's even hinted at because she's called Lily and she says to her mum, she's like a dandelion. So it's like, well, you're a flower too.
Yeah.
And it's just the way that it's like her slow descent into madness. I mean, I actually think that definitely was her coat. But...
Yeah, I do love the page after they give her the coat, and it's your vestment sister, and it's like this is it, isn't it? This is where I turn out like my mum, and one of the other Lilies is like, of course it is. We all become our parents, and it's just such the cold hard statement of that sentence. It's such a spike into such a primal fear that a lot of people have.
And throughout the comic, in her actions, in trying so hard to not be like her mother.
Sort of raising the warning signs. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then like that, actually the next issue, Tiny Lives, is like when I was saying the Twin Peaksy, the suburbia thing.
Yeah.
Where it just goes from like 0 to 60 and becomes a slasher movie.
I mean, it does have the suburbia thing very well because like the cover of that issue is the ice cream man playing with like paper cutout board game pieces in a suburban town setting.
Exactly, yeah. But like even like the whole high school thing, the dad going to the group of single dads, like learning how to look after a child, learning how to relate and look after his daughter and everything, and then he reads her diary, and which is the one thing he shouldn't have done. But it's like it is like a thriller or a slasher movie, isn't it? Like
it's like a psychosexual thriller as well, because it does that thing where it's merging the anxieties of sex with since we're going to spoil, like with the anxieties of finding out that your daughter is a deranged murderer. Like it's and it's that thing of him like him spiraling as well in his unconfidence with his fatherhood, or like his unconfidence with being a good father and passing on the right ideals, and then constantly snooping into her diary, but then realizing that he may have saved not only like the lives of many other people, but her soul in the process by making that transgression. I think is an interesting concept.
Yeah, I did have to have a hard drink after that final letter. But no, yeah, that is a great issue, and I love the way that it plays with the like every so many pages we get a diary page. And then the way it plays with the diary page is like just subtle things, like you've got like inspirational quotes at the top of each page.
Yeah,
and we go from so I'm just flicking through so the first quote is Maya Angelou, right? And it's try to be a rainbow in someone's cloud, which is the type of thing you might find pre-printed in a diary, like inspirational quotes. Then we've got a quote from Amelia Earhart. And the quotes are actually kind of like almost it's almost like she's trying to live up to those quotes by doing what she's doing on the page. Like when she writes on the page, like the quote of the day, I believe that a girl should not do what she thinks she should do, but should find out through experience what she wants to do. And then you read that page and it's like what's written on the page of the diary kind of mirrors like, or her is this the girl trying to live up to the quote?
Yeah. Yes, I don't think I've ever felt this free. It's like there's a small voice in my head saying live. Yeah.
And then we get to the next page, my favorite page, and it's a quote from Charlie Manson. It's like so it's like subtle things like that. Like we've got this quote from Charles Manson: "From the world of darkness, I did loose demons and devils in the power of scorpions to torment." And then you read like what she's written there, and it just like hungry for blood. It kind of just like it matches up to the quote.
Yeah,
like bam, she's a serial killer, and it's just great in that way in the slow build like that. And those I think those diary pages are genius. I love them.
Yeah, that particular diary page is really discomforting. Like the way she's describing the incisions at the ends of fingers, like it makes me cringe thinking about it.
Yeah, no, but
like,
I love it.
People run out of blood is a terrifying sentence.
But it's the way she makes them run out of blood as well. It's not like through cutting the carotid artery or something like that. She's doing it through fingertips. You're gonna bleed for a long time.
That first paragraph, though, is like the last of her before she's kind of just succumbs to it, because it's like the first line is, I can't stop killing people. It's not like I'm enjoying killing people so much. It's, I can't stop killing people. I wake up and a little angel whispers in my ear, someone else has to die. And it's all the caps as well, because it's like, it's so much fun. It almost makes me, in all caps, sick. Like she's sickened by herself, but she can't stop doing it.
I do love the moment you realize that what are not condoms. That's a really good reveal. That's
the box of what, and it's knives. It's like, wow. Yeah, I love that. And I love how it comes full circle when it's like the son of another guy in the group. It's brilliant. Brilliant piece of writing, that issue. I love it. But and this is like where I started to notice, wait a sec, St. Generous is like a running theme. Because I didn't notice until I noticed she was at St. Generous University, and then I went back and I checked them all, and I was like, oh.
Okay. So she's in that same town that we start off in issue 1.
We're all in this. Every issue takes place pretty much in the same town, almost.
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure that. Hold on, because I'm going to go back to the Border Story, because I want to check, actually, does Border Story take place in St. Generous?
That would be interesting.
While you're finding that, another couple of things I noticed was the teddy bear from issue, the one we just talked about, issue 15, also appears in issue 16. So I think that's a recurring motif of like the teddy bear wearing the ice cream man's hat.
The interesting thing about that teddy bear, actually, I'll come to that in a minute, a little bit of trivia, but just hold on. Because it's from some of the back matter, and I'll get to that in a sec when I find out if St. Generous is St. Generous in there. I think, what is the spaceship called? The Ark. Oh, it's just called the Ark. It's Noah's Ark, isn't it? Of course, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it is, because it's in Texas.
Yeah. I know. I'm just trying to. Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out if the name of the town is like Spanish for generous or something. No, I'm probably wrong. But yeah. Yeah, no, I just thought it'd be interesting if it was. Yeah. And then like St. Generous could possibly be a state of mind rather than a place. But it appears I'm wrong. No, the interesting thing with that teddy bear, if I can find the particular page, right. They it's a bit of a joke, but just hold on.
Do you remember which story it came up in?
It's right at the back of the final volume. And I believe the teddy bear you're talking about is Binky.
Yes.
From the story with the coat.
Yep.
Yes, here we go. In the Ice Cream Man multiverse, Binky is the plush popsicle purveyor of Earth 15, where he partakes in such acts of adorable menace as forcing Ruckspins, Paddingtons, and Poos to reckon with their midlife ennui.
That's amazing. Where's that
imagine Pooh getting some honey-flavoured ice cream and then Piglet showing up with, like, millipedes crawling out of his eyes, and Pooh's just like, oh, bother. You know, just like...
It's like those corrupted Garfield cartoons.
Yeah. Oh, they're brilliant. I love corrupted Garfield. But yeah, no, he's I now want a full like Teddy Bear's Picnic. Like, I'd love that. Like a Teddy Bear's Picnic issue with Ice Cream Man.
Yeah, I'd read Ice Cream Bear.
Yeah. Binky the Ice Cream Bear. Would be fantastic. Yeah, so I mean I think it's safe to say, like, I mean, has anyone got anything else they want to bring up or mention? Or have we talked this sundae to the bottom of the glass, as it were?
I think we've done it. We've eaten this dessert to the last scoop.
Yeah, we've cleared out the screwball, and now we can enjoy the chewing gum at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, like, I did ask you guys what your favorite flavors of ice cream were.
Oh yeah.
And the reason I was doing that is because I was I had this idea that I would play a game with myself and write a short story for each flavor of ice cream inspired by Ice Cream Man.
Okay.
And I didn't get a flavor from you, Ray. And I got Leon's.
Sorry, go on.
I got Leon's flavor too late this afternoon.
What did you say? Like Snickers, but only if it's Italian style, which I didn't quite get.
Yeah.
But I think it just means a Snickers bar and fancy ice cream, right?
I think when he means Italian style, he means like gelato. Like,
gelato, yeah.
Yeah. But like, I think like, but basically what it was is, I mean, I know I asked late as well, because I only asked you guys yesterday. But, so we'll start with Leon's because, so my horror story for Snickers for Leon is like, it's a bit lazy, but it's something that's already out there and exists. But you know, the Snickers adverts in DC Comics, because they're horrific enough anyway.
No, like, what? Oh, maybe we've talked about this in the past. What? Give me an example.
Bad Snickers adverts in DC Comics. So it was a thing that began around 2018, I think, where DC, like, you know, like they have advertising in comics, and it's like comic centric advertising within the pages of the comics. Like they advertise like weird things, like credit cards and stuff using comics characters. Well, they advertise Snickers bars. You know, like that you're not yourself when you're hungry.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's like that, but it's like, I mean, this isn't a real example, I don't think, but it's like you're not yourself when you're hungry, and like the Justice League are fighting Doomsday, and Diana's not there. And then like they give Doomsday a Snickers, and it turns back into Wonder Woman or something like that, you know.
Oh my god.
It's that level of like, yeah, like that level of like fucking like, you know, trash. But
I think the thing I had was like it's starting off as Leon's story, and then he orders or like we see somebody ordering the Snickers ice cream bar or something, and we think it's Leon, but it turns out to be Marvyn, who is deathly allergic to peanuts.
Yes.
that would be my twist story on a Snickers ice cream thing.
But yeah, so we've got the Yeah, so that's like because they're horrific enough. I don't need to elaborate on that. So the horror story for Snickers is those horrible Snickers adverts that pop up in the pages of DC Comics. Now for Marv, I actually wrote like a full page and a half.
What was what was the flavor?
Salted caramel.
Ah, okay.
So the story is called Salted Caramel. Now Marv doesn't actually feature in this. It's just a horror story I wrote based on salted caramel ice cream.
Go on then.
So I'll read it. Lynette sat in her nicotine-stained living room. A middle-aged woman with a look of strained frustration on her face as she leaned in ever closer to the neon glow of the screen, trying to catch and hang on to the drama-laced words of some fictional community or other. She could barely hear anything. The neighbours were being too damn loud again, or so it seemed. You see, the idea had plagued her ever since the new neighbours moved in, whom she didn't like upon first sight. She'd been gnawing on it like a dog with a bone in its teeth. Her jaw ached with it. She'd turn up her television. She wanted an excuse, any excuse. This young couple, you see, who had just brought the house next door, they weren't like her, not at all. Did they threaten her way of life, her silence with her soaps? What if they were dangerous? Killers next door? Knives ready for her throat and tar-filled lungs, carve her up and feed her to pigs? Young people have friends and parties. They drink and celebrate their youth. They interrupt your silence with your television. Young people are the unknown. She placed the remote on the arm of the chair next to the ashtray. A lit cigarette smouldered, and as she reached over to the side table to retrieve her tub of salted caramel ice cream, the cherry almost caught the sleeve of her pastel pink robe. Too loud again, just like 2 nights ago when she knocked on the door and told them to keep it down, told them the party was too much. The rustling in the walls, the damned rustling, the creeping, the crunching, the skittering and the crawling, the rough noise of insect husks rubbing together, much to the bewilderment of her neighbours who were asleep as it was 3 a.m. Lynette didn't sleep. She hadn't slept since the neighbours moved in. Too much noise, too much droning, too much scratching. She leaned closer to the television now. In hasty frustration, she grabbed the remote like a bull in a china shop, knocking the ashtray from the arm of the chair. This was enough. She'd had enough. She got up off the couch and marched to the front door in a blind red haze, and the next thing she knew, she was brought around by the freezing air, knocking loudly on the front window of the house next door, the house where they lived, the enemies of her peace, the loud ones, the source of the constant drone. The house was dark, no light from the windows and no answer from the door, but the noise, she thought, was deafening. Lynette moved to the front door where she continued to bang and scream for the noise to stop, but there was no answer. At her wit's end, she tried the handle of the door. Maybe the party was too loud. Maybe she would have to go in and get their attention. The door creaked open, and the deep blackness stared back. She stepped into the hallway and shuddered. It was colder in here than it was outside, and considerably louder. As Lynette ventured a little deeper, looking for a light switch, she noticed a slight incline in the ground and that the hallway seemed to go on forever. Was this an illusion of the darkness? She turned back and could no longer see the sickly orange of the streetlights from the open front door where she entered. She felt for a light switch, but her hands were only greeted by smooth damp and cold. This seemed very strange and different. Seemingly endless hallway continued on an incline, a downward slope that got narrower as time passed. Lynette knew many of the houses would have had the same layout, as they would have been built around the same time, and as far as she knew, none of them had basements. And she knew this house. She'd been inside this house while her old neighbours resided there. As Lynette continued deeper, by this point feeling she had no other choice, as she could no longer tell where she was or where she'd entered from, she began to feel movement, beneath her feet and over her hands on the walls. All of a sudden, a faint green and orange glow began to pulse from the middle distance. As she got closer, she could see insects, bugs, spiders of all sizes, species writhing, making up the very fabric of the walls and floor. You were right. We are different. A strange voice hissed over the chattering drone. We are a threat, it continued. We heard your thoughts through our antennae, you see, tasted them on the air. Your hatred of us. We just wanted to live peacefully like you. It isn't knives we have for your throat and your tar-filled lungs. It's claws and mandibles. The voice seemed to be coming from multiple directions. Lynette felt a sharp sting in the back of her neck. The orange and green glow, still pulsing, now revealed 2 large, compound eyes a hair's width from her face. Mirrored and colourful, like thin film interference, like oil on water. It was never knives. It was always fangs filled with venom, acidic saliva from our stomachs and proboscis. Sorry about the noise. We were hungry. Our children were hungry. Lynette tried to move, but she was paralyzed. She felt the itchy crawl and the sting as the ocean of insects and spiders began to rise around her legs to her knees. She tried to scream, but she opened her mouth and there was only silence and the deafening noise that had brought her to the place. The tide rose to her neck. She felt the sharp bite and burn as the bugs began to dissolve her body and crawl into her mouth and her eyes. The end.
Jesus, Greg. I'm glad my mic was on mute, because there's a point where you're talking about insects crawling up her leg and I went, ugh, out loud. That was really good.
I was going to say, you get yourself published, man.
Maybe one day. I'd love to see that adapted as a comic, actually.
Yeah.
If anyone out there would like to have a go at adapting that into a comic, just get in touch with me. But I would love to see that adapted as a comic. But yeah, I don't think I have the skill for that to turn it into a comic, but I'd love to see it adapted as a comic. But yeah, so I had a go at doing that. And the idea was I was going to do one for each of you. But I only managed to get that one done in the end. But yeah, there you go. So that was my little game for this Ice Cream Man episode. I thought I would try and emulate Ice Cream Man in some way and write my own little horror story.
I have to think about that one for next one, because I was going to tell you my favorite. I think I've mentioned it on the cast before, where we talked about ice cream flavors based on Ice Cream Man. I think in the past I said something biscuity, like a biscotti gelato or something. I was thinking about that. I think like strawberry shortcake or strawberry cheesecake, whatever it is, would be one of my favorites. Something that's a little bit sour, a little bit sweet. Yeah, but a little bit sour, a little bit sweet would be a good premise for a horror story. So I'll give you.
I'll have a think about that, and I'll try and write one for next time. Cool. But like that's the first time like I've written something and actually let anybody else read it. So like, as in like something fictional, like and let anyone else read it. So yeah, or even hear it.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm going to try and do that more often, I think, because I quite like doing that. I like making horror stories, so maybe it'll become a permanent feature of Ace Comicals. Maybe that'll be my New Year's resolution. Maybe I'll start writing my own horror stories and read them out at the end.
That's a good one, man. I like it.
Yeah, but that has been episode 79, and we were back in the sweet place. So I've only got a couple of things to mention on the pull list. League of Comic Geeks is broken. Surprise, surprise. Like, does that site ever completely work?
Like, I haven't used it in a long time, but it was. I'm trying to load it now, and with no dice, so yeah, maybe not.
And there's an app, and the app's like woefully broken as well. So, but yeah, I mean, it's good when it works. It's great. It does what you want it to do. It keeps track of your comics collection and everything. But when it's not working, it's just I mean, which is basically too often. But yeah, so the only things I really wanted to mention was the fact that Harrow County's been back, and it's Tales from Harrow County, Death's Choir. We had issue 1 just before Christmas, which dropped on the 18th of December, and issue 2 is coming out when this podcast comes out, which is on the 15th, Wednesday. Now, what I'll do is I'll just give you the brief. So Harrow County is back. Award-winning Eisner-nominated Southern Gothic horror series returns with a brand new story. 10 years have passed since Emmy exited Harrow County, leaving her close friend Bernice as steward of the supernatural home. But World War II is in full swing, taking Harrow's young men and leaving the community more vulnerable than ever. And when a ghostly choir heralds the resurrection of the dead, Bernice must find a solution before the town is overrun. So, and that is like a new continuing story. It's a mini-series. And yeah, I mean, I love me some Harrow County. In fact, that's one of the things that I would love to discuss with you guys. I'd love for you guys to read Harrow County and for us to be able to do a deep dive like we've done today with Ice Cream Man. Because I feel that, I mean, it's 50 issues. It's a long old slog, but I feel you guys would really enjoy Harrow County.
Yeah, it's been on my list for a while. So if we set that up, then I'll be sure to catch up in time for that.
It's across 8 volumes. It's well worth it. So yeah, I mean, other than that is Ice Cream Man 17. Which is on the horizon, and I just wanted to bring up particularly the cover for this comic because it's a riff on Action Comics. Action Comics #1 with Superman lifting the car.
Oh, the famous one, yeah.
Now the name of this one is Cape Fear, which is actually one of my favorite films. I like the De Niro Cape Fear though. I don't know whether a lot of people are going to agree with me on that. But that's my favorite version of Cape Fear. But Cape Fear presented here as a handsome being from far away presented here, a handsome being from far away rockets to Earth and combats evil on our behalf. Tall fella, wears a cape, lives in a fortress, flirts with a reporter. A supurating super something story that's certain to see you lose your supper. So I think what we're getting here is we're getting the style of writing is clearly going to be comics. We're getting a Superman story, a riff on a Superman story through the lens of Ice Cream Man, which I'm very much looking forward to. And that comic is just absolutely gorgeous. Confection Comics, it's like to die for. And we've got like we've even got covers available now for 18 and 19 as well. So 17's available on the 29th of January. 18 is end of February, and then 19 you're looking at like towards the end of March. But like the other two covers, they look great as well. Issue 18, watch as it all recedes. The lights that line the hallway of your mind will blink off one by one. So that sounds like it's going to deal with Alzheimer's, like the fear of forgetting, the fear of losing yourself. And then Ice Cream Man number 19, Haunting for Beginners, inside step-by-step instructions to becoming a better ghost. It includes tips for more efficient apparitioning, how to invisibly observe, methods of spook improvement. Note, see section 6 for safety warnings. So issue 19 has this, it's kind of like an instruction manual look to it when you look at the cover. And it's like this, like how to be a ghost, like don your suit, roam invisibly, observe the living. And it's all kind of like it is like literally like an instructional poster. And there's a quote on there, you're more dead than alive. And there's, I just want to draw attention to the bit where it says here what you'll need. 1 pair of kitchen scissors, 1 clean white bed sheet, a sense of your own insignificance, the propensity to quietly wonder. So this is going to be about like feeling invisible, I assume, or it may be a less simplistic way of putting it than that, but yeah, something along those lines. But it looks great, and I'm looking very much forward to it. And I just wanted to bring those up because we're doing an Ice Cream Man centric cast right now. So that has been Ace Comicals number 79. So you can find us at www.acecomicals.com, which is kind of the hub for everything we do and all the places that we are visible and available, which is Twitter under Ace Comicals. You can find us on Facebook under Ace Comicals, Instagram under Ace Comicals. We tend to be more on Twitter than we are anywhere else these days. I don't like Facebook, so I think you'll find us more active on Twitter. That's where we're the most active. If you want to interact with us, you want to message us, if you want to get involved in the conversation, Twitter's the place to do it. You can find me on Twitter under @Battou, that's BATTOU. You can also fire us an email to acecomicals@gmail.com, and we will get back to you. Ray, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter @Monkes, that's @MOONKEH.
And Marv, where can we find you?
On Instagram under Marv Lafayette 84, or on Twitter @Marvyn Lafayette.
Yeah, so you can also just find us to listen to us in all the usual places: Apple Podcast, Castbox, Castro, Overcast, Pocket Cast, my favorite, which is Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. And if you are that way inclined, you can donate to us the price of a coffee to help keep the lights on here at Ace Comicals, which is our Ko-fi site. So that's ko-fi.com/acecomicals, and you can send us the price of a coffee, and any money we get on there goes towards keeping the show up and running. So yeah, thanks for listening, guys. That's Ace Comicals, over and out. LiCkEtY split.